Yes, and there we are again with a new episode of Dance Gems. Today we are going to talk about feeling versus emotion in dance. And I would never do that, of course, with my good friend and colleague. Let's see if he's there. Don, are you there?
Hey, Sean, I'm there. That's a nice feeling to see you.
That's good. That's good. Is it a feeling or emotion?
Yeah,
Should I ask then? Huh?
yeah, the
That's probably
emotion, yes.
yeah. That's good. Yeah, which what we're going to talk about things in dance, feeling and emotion. You wrote about it in your book too, and we
Mm.
get a lot of questions and we hear a lot of things about feeling versus emotion, or feelings versus emotions, if you want to do it plural. Same thing. Let's talk
Mhm.
about that for a little bit. Yeah. So, for a lot of people, when we talk into daily life, they use it inter intermixed, right? When they say feeling, they talk sometimes about their emotions, and when they say emotion, they sometimes talk about feeling, and that's perfectly fine, right? But if you want to be a little bit more precise, like for instance, when we want to use it in dance, or when I want to use it sometimes with people that I help in their emotional life, we have to be a little bit more precise, of course. So, is there a feeling, Tom? Is there no? Is there a difference between feeling and emotions?
Of
I'm
course, there's
asking
the
that. I don't know it.
yes, I understand that. Of course, there's the different. Of course, the words are different because otherwise, why you would have two different words for one meaning?
Yeah.
That would be strange. Years ago, I also mixed up these two feelings and emotions, and I thought that was quite normal to mix them up at that time. It's not so long ago, 10 years ago, and 50 years long, I mixed these two words up. And that there came a moment that I thought, two different words, there has to be two different meanings.
Yeah.
So that was a quite long research and also an inner struggle again to change my habit in the how I use the words. And now I more give it more attention to it. It can be that I sometimes mix it up, but still these two words are close with the meaning, but still there are really difference in it. I put it in my book. I will take it with me with the hand. Feeling an inner positive or negative experience of an event. We have to explain an event, I think, Sean, or not. This happens through the perception of the senses, and it has to do with your character. That's how I put it in my book. So it's not fixed in stone, so it can be always still changed. And in emotion or emotions, I put it like that. Emotions are a physical and an instinctive and lead immediately to physical reactions. There are inner experience that can be evoked by the situation, and they are visible in the face and supported by the body language and the breathing, of course, and the dynamic around you or the surrounding around you that has influence on it. But take it very in a shortcut. Actually, the feelings and your thoughts in the inner activity is the source, and the emotions are the outcome of that one in that body language. Oh, Sean is putting no, so you
It's my
can tell what
emotion.
you.
This was my emotion. I did that on purpose. That was my
Ah,
emotion.
okay. Oh, you did it. Okay,
That was my
okay,
emotion.
Sean. But if you do yes or no, that's the outcome of that feeling. And
I did my emotion. That's of course
Yes.
it's a very complex thing actually, and it's very well researched actually. The difference between feeling and emotion. Emotions are always immediate. There's
Yeah.
immediate. There's immediate.
Immediately.
So it can actually happen without any feeling or indication. It just is immediately. Once had the emotions, feeling starts to develop. Then some feelings can trigger an emotion. But emotion is always a physical outing. Crying, you can feel it in your stomach, sweating, or suddenly what I did, I just shook my head, but I did a little on purpose. So that's not real emotion. I played the emotion a little bit. Oh my gosh, I'm not agreeing with it. It's very hard
Yes.
to
And
suppress.
I believed it.
Yeah, you believed it, yeah. But it's very hard to suppress. So if we talk, we had another podcast about nonverbal communication and can you detect whether is someone a liar or not? Emotions are very hard to suppress. You can learn it, by the way, but it's very hard to suppress. It's immediate, right? It's immediately there. Feelings of anger or feeling of disgust, or when you bite in something that tastes horrible, like your face, that's an emotion. Those are emotions.
Yeah.
Feelings you can think about and you can analyze it, and it's is longer. Yeah?
Yes. It's for the
Emotions,
long term.
yeah,
Yes.
emotions, like it's very hard to debate what comes first. According to
Hmm.
psychology, emotions is actually really the source of everything, because the other thing you have to think about. So the
Yes.
emotions is your physical, but once you had it for the first time, you had this scary reaction of a spider. That's an emotional reaction. Now, of course, now the next time that I see a spider, I trigger it
Mhm.
myself. That's also a good way to actually solve the problem of being afraid of spiders, is turn it around. Another thing that's interesting, Ton, that is very well researched, feelings and emotions are in a different place of our brain. Yeah, so the emotions are in what we call our limbic system. And you could actually say, if you believe in the evolution of men, of people and the brain, then your limbic system is the part that is first developed in our brain. And that's where the emotions reside. And our feelings actually reside in different parts of the brain. Now, how can you prove that? Actually, research proved that quite easily, that if we know that someone is has a trauma or their limbic system is damaged, you can actually see that they have less emotions than when they are not, or when that functions optimal. I'm a little bit distracted because I don't know what Tom is doing with his camera, but and his sound is also off now.
Yes. My camera was falling here.
Okay. But anyhow, so just to recap that, Tom, is if you look at it from a neurological point of view, your emotions are sitting in a completely different area of your brain than your feelings. Yeah, your feelings are sitting more in the analytical parts of your brain than your emotions. Your emotions sit in your limbic part of the brain. So you can measure
Yes.
these things typically when you come across someone that has damage in one or the two thing, and see if they have a different emotional life.
Yeah.
And that is true. That is actually very well researched.
Yes.
It's not something that we believe or made up.
No, absolutely not. Your feelings are hidden. You cannot see my feelings, and you can also not speak for my feelings because they are inside of somebody's body. But emotion, the outcome of it, the physical outcome of it, it's always visible. If it would be the truth, sometimes, mostly yes, but you can hidden that also when I would lying. So I could, when I'm a super liar, I could change my outcome, my emotion, my body language, my facial expression, etc., because it's all the emotions what you have then. And but if you not so be practiced in lying, because I wanted not to use the word good, Sean, because it's quite subjective. If you practice many times in lying, and then people could believe you. But if you are not practice that, the outcome of your face and your body language will tell something about that. So it needs some practice also to change your emotional outcome. But then you are really aware of it, and then you can manipulate it. But if you're not aware of it, then it is always something visible, and it's immediately what Sean said already. It's immediately you can see that people not think about their body language, about their gestures, about the facial expression, because it's all a combination of it, gives a certain emotion there, a certain language. And quite interesting how we could use that in dancing, because in dancing, we have also a certain feeling when we dance on the floor, but we are not always aware of that emotional outcome of it. And that's quite strange, Sean, in my opinion, because actually a dancer speaks mainly in the communication non-verbal, without words. So would it be not an idea to follow dramatic lessons or acting lessons to improve that and to get more aware of all this information what you give with that body, because actually you painting on the floor as a dancer with that body.
Yeah, there are a couple of things here, at least is my opinion. I teach a lot. It's one of the things that I studied the most, maybe, and we call that in dance and drama, we call that emotional expression. And I think that's a wrong word because the moment that I consciously think about that I have to express surprise is an emotion, and it just happens. If suddenly my parents passed away, but if they would walk in the door right now, I would be quite surprised. Does that make sense? That's an
Or
emotion.
scared.
Yeah, or scared, either way, right? Could be anything. So
Yeah.
if we say it's the outcome, it's not the outcome of a feeling. It's a reaction to a situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What we
Yes.
do in dance, we make it an outcome of a feeling that we want to express. So we think about it. If I'm happy, a normal emotional reaction of happiness is smile. Now I made it an analytical thing. And then to make it look most natural, that's a skill, right? We all have the ability to smile. We already know that. To have the knowledge how to do that is what I just explained. And then we have the skill to do it as, and natural is already subjective, to do it as natural as possible. See, and that's where the mixed income comes in, I think, and that makes it very sometimes hard to teach is because you actually it's better to not be really angry if you want to express anger in dance. But what you need to know is how is anger normally expressed so that you can mimic it. So you have a little bit of, and this is the right way of using it, and in this case I don't mean that subjective, is you need to have analyze a little bit first what is the feeling of anger, not the emotion of anger, but what's the feeling of anger so that they can express it. But everything that happens in the moment as a reaction, that is pure emotion, right? If I suddenly break your new car, get angry, you don't think about, oh, he is breaking my car. Now I will become
Mm.
angry. That's no emotion. That's
Yeah.
feeling. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? That spontaneous reaction right on top of it, that's emotion,
Mhm.
very short lived. Now, once we know what these emotions are, then we can, of course, in acting and drama classes, we can try to see if we can use that in what we want to express in dance.
Mm.
So, hence, I think, yeah, I understand why I do it myself because I think feeling expression that just doesn't. roll nicely as a lesson. So we keep saying emotional expression, but I hope you agree that's actually not really what we do, because emotions is spontaneous. That's always in the moment. That is pure from the gut.
Yes, but still you need some analytic to analyze all these emotions. And
That's what I
if you
said.
want to,
To
yes.
think
Ah,
about
you
it.
said Sean.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
that's what I said.
a- And you have also to experience that. And
It would helpful if you have experienced that emotions in your life, right? Yeah, if you never have experienced anger, it's probably really hard to express anger. You can read about it, or you can watch a movie about it where people are really angry. That's a really hard.
as a dancer, you are an actor in one or other way without
Very.
words.
Yeah.
Without words. But if you would express the words too there, and the body would react also on that words, then it get more honest. I will give you an example. When I would count in dancing, and I would say to my group, count 5, 6, 7, 8, and they count like 5, 6, 7, 8. The outcome of it is also that the body takes that words to a certain outcome of that body. And if they would count it like more shorter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the body would also react on that one. And I did this several times. Now I make them more aware how what they feel at that moment is instance like, oh, but when I make them aware, be awake, and now try to use your voice different to that body, they get a different feeling from it also inside, because it seems they're more awake, Sean, and more shorter to the ball. And yes, but after maybe 10 minutes, they get again back to the old one. And me as a trainer make them aware that they have to be focused on that. And then this will work. And also the eyes, when you look to the eyes in the emotions of in the facial emotions expression, when you look to the eyes, sometimes the eyes are looking to the left, to the right, up, forward, down. They it seems not they have one point in what they want to say. If they want to say happiness, the eyes are completely different than when you are sad. So your eyes and the muscles around it would also change to that. And I practice with my children that it's not mine what I did. You have the 6 basic emotions from Darwin, and I started from that one. Of course, now a lot of change in 100 years. I put 8 to it. Sean has put them, he can tell more about it, in 3 boxes. And from there, from this 8, you can make 24 different expressions. What the mean expression would be: happiness, sadness, disgust, something you know, or something, yeah, afraid. That one. How many I had, Sean? 4?
Yep.
Yes. Then fear, anger, I put already, surprise, aversion, sadness. So that would be the main one. And then you get all the sub emotions from it. But Sean can have a little bit different view on it, but it comes to the same. But of course, in 100 years from Darwin, more than 100 years ago, he proved this, that there are 6 what you can recognize from a picture in different countries where people saw the picture and the outcome was then the same happiness or sadness they could that see on that picture. So I practice this with my children. The one in front of it analyze it, and the other one try to do that. And the outcome is you could have 6 papers and turn it around. Okay, that's the right one. And it's not only in the face, but also in the body. You can show that in the body language. So everything is holistic and it is connected with each other. Maybe you
Yeah,
could say something from the 3 boxes, Sean.
of course. Darwin is so long ago, and a lot of these things that he did was quite brilliant actually for the time. But of course, time goes evolves, and so research evolves too. And we try to categorize emotions and feelings, and so Darwin was maybe one of the first who tried to do that. He came to six, and there's another psychologist and researcher called Robert Plutchik, and he mentioned 8 emotions. And the what I think the interesting thing about Plutchik's theory is that he says, besides knowing these main categories of emotions like happiness, there are also nuances how you express them. So for instance, in in happiness, you could say, oh, in the beginning you have a more calm feeling. When I'm happy, I'm really calm. But when I'm getting a little bit more to an excitement, then it's a little bit more what we call joy. But if it's like really a big surprise, then I'm so happy and excited about it, right? Like I'm right now. So there are so that is what Plutchik did. He said he defined 8 bigger categories. Happiness, he called that joy, but there's also these emotions of trust where you accept something foremost, like now, okay, I trust these people, Tom and John. Yeah, no, listening with a certain amount of acceptance. Then when you really follow us, then maybe you become a fan of us, then you admire, then you give the highest level of trust. And the same thing you could say with fear. If I need to try a new dish and I'm not so good with that, then we call that in English, I'm a little bit apprehended about it, but it's not, I don't have a terror. Some people have a terror to taste some new food. So what Plutchik actually did is he also gave nuances in the emotions that we have, which you can actually see. And in all these 8 categories, there is different levels of sadness, of course, right? When a plant dies, you think, oh my, yeah, it's expensive
He-
as my plant die. But
Yes.
when my parents die or my mom, even in that perspective, I literally could say that I experienced the passing away. My parents passed away in a very short amount of time, close together. And the grief, we call that grief, I had between one sadness and the other was quite different. It was quite different. And so the
He,
nuances become interesting.
yeah,
And
he put it in a flower in colors, and it's quite nice to see how he put the colors to
he,
that. Robert
yeah, no,
Robert
he knew, he put it in, it's a diagram. And then he
diagram.
put,
Yes.
yeah, it's a diagram, and he alluded colors to it. So that's very arbitrary, right? Why is anger more red? That's culturally, in some cases, that is not psychologically proved.
No.
That is a little bit also the power of suggestion. Now we say
Yes.
romance and anger is both in red. Strong emotions are more in red, and when we calm, it is more blue and
Or
green.
green.
And but it's very hard now to see if that's really how we feel about it, because of that it's done now so often in art and in
Yeah.
poems, and so,
Yeah.
but it
But
helps, it helps,
yes,
it
it's
helps.
arbitrary, the colors, but still, he did a great job there in
Oh,
that.
fantastic.
And
Yeah,
and why it's so important? Because it's important to get aware of it,
yeah,
how many main emotions you have and how many sub emotions you have.
yeah,
And if you practice them for the mirror by yourself, but also with a partner,
yeah,
get more aware how you could do your dance and look if people would react on it. And still, if you not believe in it or not really feel from the inner side in your body and think that you have to go 100% in it and also try to live it, through live it, and try to
Yeah,
make it so honest as possible.
yeah,
What if you have only limited expression like smiling and sadness or neutral in the face? Yeah, what will happen then? And also the body, when that not react, when you smile and sadness with the same body language, that would be, for me, it is quite weird to
yeah.
to give an
Well,
observation like that and to analyze it like that. You have also the muscle tensions in that certain body parts. They are also changing constantly. So it's also dynamically, and it has also to say with the tempo what you use and durations in between and the timing. It's so important how you do this in first for yourself, but then in the interaction with the team. It's so important. If you work with it and your team not work with it, it looks also strange. You have all to work with it on a certain way that you understand the emotional expression, because expression is the bigger part of everything and the emotion is a smaller part, and the feeling is again the source is the feeling, the emotion is the outcome. The emotion, when we go to the next step, is the source and the expression is the outcome. So you can also do it vice versa. But that's quite important to understand that you have to work with it and look for an expert if you don't have one. Not follow only the teacher because maybe he is right, maybe he is not, but a teacher is sometimes not only a teacher, he is a coach, he is a choreographer, he is a makeup artist, he is everything, but sometimes you need a specialist for it.
yeah, you do. Drama teachers are definitely specialists, but there's a lot of research you can do yourself. I really, Tom, it's not to correct you, by the way, but I really want to make that clear that feelings are not the source of emotions. Feelings can be the source of emotions,
Yeah.
but feelings are not the source of emotion. They can be. Because there's a lot of
Yes.
emotions that we have without even think that goes too fast to think about what
Yeah.
feelings drives it.
Correct.
This is
But
where this
I
is
give
where it
more context to it, Sean. You have an instinct and you react immediately from your instinct or from your intuition to protect yourself. So even that the outcome is so fast that you not realize that you had that feeling at that moment.
yeah, that's the reason why you use that. That's nice because your instinct is literally in your limbic system and
Mhm.
your feeling is in another system. So emotions predominantly are immediately. There is nothing before that. But when we talk about dance, your feelings can be the driver of the emotions that you try to show to other people.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to talk about. Those are two different things, which I think dancers often confuse what they truly feel and what they try to express in a dance or an actor. And so you really don't have to feel happy to express happiness. You don't have to be really angry to express anger. But it does help if you have experienced happiness and anger because then you can tap into that. But
Yes.
if I coach people on the dance floor, and in 2 weeks' time I'm going to do that in a major competition, then they say, "Yeah, but today I don't feel like it." Is that I literally say, "Actually, I don't really care about it. It's your choice to go on the dance floor, and it's your
Mm.
duty because it's a performance art to perform the best to your ability." That's as simple as it is, and that's where actors can go wrong. So you don't have to but it has to be real. Oh, but that's what Tom talked about. It can still be real if you can tap into that moment. So if I have to express now the deepest grief possible, I would think about, okay, what is the worst thing that actually happened in my life? For me, most current is the passing away of my mom. I can tap into that and I can use that in a story that maybe Tom choreographed. Then it becomes pretty authentic. So that is another thing. What you could do, Ton, is if you go deeper in Plutch exterior, then you can also make some sort of a table that certain emotions are more expressed with certain body parts, right? So something that disgusting is very quickly expressed through the face. Ooh, oh, that's disgusting, right? But if someone has more an emotion of that they are proud of something, you see actually they puff up their body. Oh, I'm so proud of it. A shame, which is not a primarily, that's a tertiary emotion that relates to fear and disgust. But shame is typically when people make themselves small, right? Their body becomes smaller. So you could make a list, which I did, of course, because I teach emotional expression, that some body parts, is it always 100% true? No, of course not. That's where we play with it. But surprise is typically also more eyes and mouth, like, oh my gosh, there's no one who was surprised who closed their eyes. Oh, I'm so surprised. That's so weird, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're surprised, you open your eyes. And so you could think about that more and play that. And that's what Ton typically does with his students. I do with my students, saying, hey, express for me anger. So you can explore it. What's weird is that when you do that with your face, you get actually also a little bit the feeling of being truly surprised. So it's not only that you're emotions, your body follows your emotions, but the other way around is also a little bit true. You can let your emotions follow your body. And that only proves for Ton and me that body and mind are completely one. There's no,
Yeah.
there's, it
If
follows.
if you are a dancer, you have maybe a narrative story in that head that you want to express, and there is always context to it, to what you want to express from the inside outside to it. It's important to have that context. You cannot change immediately from disgust to grief to anger to truth. That's there is always an overlay and then how you say and transition from one point to the next one, and it can be sudden and it can be also like going slowly comes it and then it changed. Also the nuances is that you use that in English too, Sean? Nuances? The
Yeah, that's an English word, huh?
yeah, to the small things what change inside that what you feel, what you want to express. It's so holistic because also your body parts, you have to be aware of that body parts in we call it the proprioception. Proprio, your own body property, and deception, the perception of that body parts in bending, stretching, rotating, because it's holistic, because you have also, you feel something and you want to give a small change in your muscle part to give it a different context and a different outcome of that emotion, what you want to show and to express. That's a bigger word again, because everything have to work together with each other. And when you want to go to the floor and you have a certain atmosphere what you want to put there, like grief, and the Robert Puchik, you would use that color blue if it is a show about grief. It could be gray, it could be black also, if you would understand it like that. But still be aware what colors you want to use, what how you want to express that from all puzzle pieces together as a whole, and not see it only as feelings and emotions, but there are more to it for the outcome. That's
Yeah.
what I actually wanted to say. Mm?
Yeah, I think I see it also as tools, right? So in normal life, we sometimes go really fast through our emotions, but it works a little bit different. And if you look, for instance, at old black and white movies, which is great as a dancer to watch because they couldn't talk, right? And then you had this person like Charlie Chaplin, but I kind of like Buster Keaton a lot, right? And so they did crazy things also in their expressions because they had to use a lot of expressions to make it in a black and white movie, either comical or very dramatic, and they could change that very quickly. At some point in time, Don, if we talk about dynamics, we often talk about the dynamics of movement, but you can also do the dynamics of, because it's an art form, the dynamics in very quickly changing. I'm smile, I'm sad, I'm smile, I'm sad. See, it gives it's a way of expressing, and it could be comical or use the opposite colors that Plotchik use in the emotion, and it gives
Absolutely.
it confuses a little. And Ton and I both like that a little bit, to confuse, to not do the most, what we understand, the stereotypical thing. It's a good place to start, by the way, to do it first, how it's close to normal life. It's a good place to start. But once you start to play with it, then it becomes a little bit, yeah, pride is mostly expressed through the body. But that doesn't mean that's the only way to express it. Huh? And so that then it becomes it's another way how you said it, but it becomes a little bit more interesting, right?
Yes, actually be aware of all these components,
Yeah,
and then it gives you options, and then it gives you a choice as an inner person to come to an outcome.
yeah,
But if you are only a follower and you follow only the teacher without, or the
yeah,
choreographer, without any thinking by yourself and feeling by yourself, you're just a follower, and it will be never honest because it's not really you. So go deep into yourself and find questions for yourself, what you want to express at the end, what you feel, what you think, what atmosphere you want to put there from your thinking, and what story you have, and how you go from one to another. Because we are actually painters on the floor, and we use all these different muscle tensions, but we paint in the air, and it is there, and it will be disappeared after again. So the moments are quite short, but how more you are aware of it, and how more options you have, how more, if you would practice that, could choose at that moment what you want to express. Even when you're standing before you go on to that floor, you have already an expression in that body.
oh
But
yeah,
what you feel there, that will be expressed as
oh yeah, yeah,
yes.
definitely,
And
yeah, for sure. From I said yesterday, I was teaching a lesson in biomechanics, Ton, and I was talking about muscle tension too, right? Biomechanics is mostly driven by the bone structure and the muscle, and how we use the muscles to move those bones. And I made 100% exactly the same movement, and I just used different muscle toning in that movement. And the students reacted like they saw a whole different story. I said, "Isn't that amazing? If you just look
yes,
at it emotion wise, if I look at it just from a mechanical point of view, I didn't do anything else. You got a different reaction to it just by changing the tonus of my muscles. I could wave at you, right on, or I
mm,
could do it's the same
mm,
movement. But this is so what is he trying to do?
yeah,
Cleaning the screen,
Cle-
cleaning the
yeah,
window.
cleaning the street. Yeah,
Or is he waving at me? What is he doing? So
yeah,
so what Ton just said, we sometimes look at too complicated, right? Just only experimenting with the change of a muscle tonus, the tension of the muscle changes almost everything.
Yes, in time, yes, we have tempo and we have timing. And tempo and timing is so important to be aware
Yeah,
how you use that as a person, not as a follower.
yeah,
That somebody said you have to do that tempo. That's really a unique feeling to somebody, which tempo he used and which timing he used. That's so personal. You cannot follow that from somebody else, what they feel actually and what they know from the history, that you have to imitate that tempo. That's, in my opinion, quite weird to discover. But maybe because you are not so experienced, I assume that, then it would be helpful to follow that timing and tempo. But still, at the end, you
it's
have
good.
to do it by yourself.
Yeah, it's a good place to learn. Yeah, the same thing was yesterday. I asked them what is the first way we typically learn if it comes to things like dance. What do you mimic first? You mirror is actually what you try to do it. Doesn't always, but I said it also to them, when you mirror me as a dance teacher, would you say that after you do that, that it looks exactly the same? And they said no. We were hoping that it does the same because there's so much more going on than you actually. That's often a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a lack of skill. We do that. And that is also true, of course. And I think I gave you that example in the Dutch podcast on that I have the feeling that my family grew up with two main emotions. There was either angry or there was happiness. There was very little in between that could change from one moment to the other. And for me as a kid, it was a very scary environment to live in because any moment this anger could come up and people would throw stuff and hit each other. And then the next time they were happy with each other again. And for me that was very hard to deal with. And strange as it is if it comes to learning, Ton, that in my early life going outside in the world, that was basically the two emotions that I was looking for. What am I
Mhm.
happy about? I didn't knew all these nuances that there were.
Now,
It took me dance to go even further where I have a list of myself as all the and do I know these emotions intimately, right? Do I know the difference between the difference interests? That's what I practice because if I don't know it, how can I express it? You need to literally go, even if it's as simple as going, taking that list of Plutchik or Darwin,
yeah,
doesn't really matter. Doesn't
or
really matter.
Darwin or
It
Plutchik.
doesn't matter. No, I don't care. But look at it, and if it's a, do I really intimately know the differences of levels of happiness? Can I show that? Can I talk about it? Can I express it? Can I feel it? Do I know the differences? Be trust, like I say, admiration. How is it to admire something, and how is just that you come on it? Does my
Yeah.
body, yeah? So that's where it
Fa-
all starts.
For me, as an external perceiver with my senses, when I go to the theater or to a competition floor, I want people, that's also some imagination I have, some expectations also. I want to see you, what you have to tell on that floor. From the choices you make, where I told many T's: timing, tempo, tonus of the muscles, so tuning the tonus in which body parts, and how you react on your environment, etc. Everything you can train and develop. But what Sean said, in the instant moment, if you have experience with that one, you can make different choices in it because you have the options. But if you don't have options, you get only a puppet on the floor, a machine on that floor. This is not where I am looking for. My expectation is to look to a real person and not to, at the surface, a person who practiced very well their body parts and study where they must smile and where they look angry, and then you see these big eyes coming onto you on that floor, on a competition floor. Sometimes very scaring for me. I, but even when I look to the opposite in a theater, sometimes they dance with a whole company there, a whole team, and they look all neutral in their expression, what also is weird for me myself. No interaction between each other. They do their movements incredible. They are flexible, strong, and I'm quite impressed. But when I look further, what is the real interaction action and what they really have to tell, I miss that also. So that's also a lake of what they give there, of what
Yeah.
they have practiced. And in the ballet, they have narrative stories. They follow that one, but sometimes they're standing so weird with the body posture, so straight and everything, and so on a distance that I also not believe that. But
Yeah.
it looks like it's in a certain corset to give that to the audience. And I asked myself if the feeling really is connected with the outcome of that emotion, the body language, the gestures, what they give, the context of what happened before and after. If you really have more experience with that one, then all this dance form looked a little bit,
Yeah.
how I would say, compact in what they give.
Yeah, there's a very whether you take classical ballet or you take the typical stereotypical ballroom dancing, is they talk a lot about posture, right? And the posture always has to. They say you and I went through those trainings, right? It to be upright posture, forward poise, head up. So that I always wondered, okay, but and I even asked some of my teachers that, but for me that correlates only with certain emotions. How can I,
Yes.
with this posture, express shame, which is clearly here, right?
Or
Like,
yes, or
yeah,
happiness, Sean.
or happiness is a little bit here, right? So that
Yes, yes.
kind of
But
fits, right?
not fixed, eh?
But it's not fixed, right? But so I on purposely took this upright and this an emotion that is more collapsed. I said, so that doesn't work. You cannot tell me that's fine, but don't tell me that you can express every emotion with this posture because it doesn't exist, right? It doesn't match. It doesn't correlate. We can try it and we can experiment it, which we did, of course, to do an opposite body and then see if you can do that, but it's not very convincing in that. It could be very experimental, and it definitely in modern dance we do that sometimes just to be a little bit do different than what most people expect. But be constantly in the same type of body position while you also want to have a range of emotions to express
Yeah.
doesn't
Look,
sound very logical to me. Specifically classical ballet, where it's always like
yeah,
this. It
yeah, very light, very,
up.
and less distortion in their body language of the posture. It's always quite fixed. But it also be nice, but
Yeah.
our world is changing, and I want to see a human being there. What makes the decision? Even when you have that posture, still you can make details in it. I made a show for two dancers, Sean. Not a show. That was actually after the competition. They came from the floor and go sit on a chair, and behind the chair was explosive, but the body was completely out of it and like desperate and exhaust, and
Hmm?
with the two elbows on the knees wide open, with the head down between the knees, and exactly the picture behind explosive. That was a wonderful picture because it gives the opposite of what the expression is actually. And what I want to tell is what you feel you could see, but you could also see behind the explosive what it was. And but
I
I
believe that. Yeah.
seldom see this on the floor. immediately. So it happened from instinct there, or to release everything. But actually, I want to see it also on the floor when it happened like that. And you are, say, you are tired on the floor. Why you cannot show that? You can show that you are sometimes tired, because it gets also a funny touch when you do a hip hop battle and you show, I'm so tired now. And then suddenly you take a second breath in it and you put again explosive in it. It's so nice to play with that muscle tension inside that body, to bring that nuances into it as a real human being. And you tell what you want to tell at that moment, and you make instance that choice to switch and to tell something what you want to express. And that's wonderful to see that on that floor when that happened, Sean.
Yeah, I
And
think
I
I
get,
think yeah, I think that in art forms like traditional ballroom and Latin dancing, as we know it is one form. There are a lot of more dance forms. We can talk about that too. But in this specific dance form, it feels a little bit like the emotional expression is put on top of it, right?
yeah,
So it's an afterthought. But if you go more to theater, then we maybe, and that's a little bit more how Ton and I think, is what is it that you want to express? What movement would help you to express that in a stronger way? That's more how I always thought, and that's weird. I make a movement and now I have to put an emotion on top of it. That's not how human beings live, right? Our body is following the emotion. It's not the other way around. And but of course, from a if we are very creative, we could do it the other way around. And that's why sometimes it feels a little bit funny when you go to that type of competition. Like suddenly they smile for no reason, or they for no reason, and it feels a little bit funny. I'm not saying it's not real, but it
mm,
gives us always a little bit of a weird it gives us a little bit of a weird feeling, so to speak.
mm,
But
yeah.
to be more connected with the emotions that you want to express, or the emotions you want to have, you have to explore them. And you could start with the 6 from Darwin, you could start with the 24 from Plutchik, doesn't really matter. Start somewhere, explore it, and then also try to do a little bit research on it, because there are certain emotions that typically doesn't always have to be true, but are more expressed through a certain body part. Disgust is a little bit more expressed through the face. And shame, like I used, was just an example. Aggression is also very physical. A lot of muscle toning, right? Aggressive people have a lot of muscle toning. If you trust someone, you're very relaxed. You have a very relaxed body, right? It's so that it's so there. Take first one that's easier to understand, and then experiment and go deeper and deeper in it. And I actually, to be honest, I have a very long list. I don't know how many, but I've about 32 of first, primary, secondary, and tertiary emotions, and what is most logical to connect, and ask people to do that. And that's a way
Mhm.
to start. But and then definitely Ton is a master in definitely using his face. It's amazing how many things you can do. I remember that thing when you did, what is that Dutch show, Dutch Got Talent or something? What is it?
Holland Got Talent,
Holland
yes.
Got Talent. Holland Got Talent.
Like
And then
American Got
and then
Talent, yes.
you when you took that flower suddenly there, and
Yeah.
and there was a lot of emotions of amazement in there, and then you could see that, and then and it's not that Tom did not know that the flower was there. I mean, he practiced like 200 times, but every time he does it, he still has to let the audience feel how amazed he was by that flower. It has to be a real feeling at that moment. I cannot say to Ton, oh, Ton, open your eyes. Eh? Do a big
No,
smile like that. Then it's not real. It still has to feel real. So you have to go pretty deep. I remember the one that I came to see that show in Ellesmere or wherever that was. The weather was horrible, right? We
yes,
were
yes,
barely in time, and then you guys had to go up, and then the moment of that, and you delivered it right there. You kids too, by the way. Your students were
yes,
amazing. Very
yes,
well. Yeah.
yeah.
I
I
felt,
use
yeah,
I use my senses for it.
yeah,
When I smell on a
yeah,
flower, I know how it smells and my body react on it, how I squeeze and I feel the flower. That also gives a certain body language
Yeah.
then again, and certain emotion in totally. Then I smell the flower, one of it. I see the flower. I can hear when I squeeze it. And all these things of this awareness of your senses give a certain outcome of that body, that and what I feel and what my experience are with that. And you try, of course, to reach the audience that they have a certain interoception of that feeling. How I can reach them: be extreme, be honest, stay close to yourself, and express what you want to express.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the art of it, of that, because feelings are unique, your emotions are unique, your thinking is unique. Nobody can think for you, nobody can express for you, nobody can feel for you.
No, that's absolutely correct. On
Yes.
all the list that I gave is that is what we most people do. But if you express emotion different, then that's perfectly fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine. But discover it. So the list that I gave, that anger is more with tension in the arm, is that's what most people do. Doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. You find another
Mm.
way to express it. Is perfect. That's perfectly fine. That's a little bit what we say. But we are way over the hour already, Tom.
Wow, no,
Yeah.
Sean. We
Yes,
are
it's like
over the hour. Wow.
I thought we
Yes.
were just 20 minutes talking about this.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's,
Then you can see how interesting it is
yeah,
to speak about that. Yeah. What I want to give to you, listeners: stay close to yourself, go on research, follow maybe in the beginning your teacher, but at the end, make it yourself, because you are the artist, you are the painter, you express what you want to express. And I want to definitely to see you and not somebody others commandos what you're following.
yeah, see you or the character that you choose to portray.
To be serious.
That could be true too. Yeah, very nice. All right, you people, this was emotions versus feeling, or feeling versus emotion in dance. We talked a little bit about the differences and all the theory behind it. And even if you looked at us, we actually tried to express it a little bit on camera. Not sure if that really if that really came across, but I hope so. With that, I say, Tom, I hope to see you next time. I'm going to say goodbye to the people. I enjoyed this quite a bit.
Yes, thank you, Sean. And we speak each other next week again when
We
we
speak to
record
each other
another
next
one.
week again for another episode of Dance Gems. Going to
Yes,
close off with our music and say goodbye to you, Tom. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience.
you
And of
also,
course,
Sean.
say goodbye to our people on Dance Gems. This was Feeling versus Emotion in Dance with Dance Gems and Tom and Jean. And of course, you can always find us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and our own website, www.gem.dance/podcast. With that, I say to you bye bye.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.